My name is Mayrim Melendez. I'm one of the managers of delivery for the Flight Service Training Department. This year, I'll be celebrating my 30th anniversary with Envoy. I started as a flight attendant back in 1995. In 2010, I had the opportunity to be hired as a flight service manager for the San Juan base. That was a pivotal role for me. I learned a lot about the operation and working and managing a team. When San Juan base closed, I had the opportunity to transfer to Dallas as a flight service manager. Had an opportunity to then transfer to the Flight Service Training Department, which I work also under the Air Ops organization. In my current role as a manager of delivery, I oversee the day-to-day operation, the training programs, the training equipment that our instructors and students utilize. I also work in the hiring process for instructors. What I like most about my job is that there's never a dull moment in this position. Every day keeps me on my feet because I have to support the operations. So everything that comes up in the operations, I'm there to assist. I also like to collaborate with the rest of the team. And of course, supporting the instructor. They're super important in our department, so we'll make sure that we always are present for them. For me, Women's History Month is important because it's an opportunity to celebrate the incredible contribution that women have made throughout history. It's also a reminder to us there's work to be done. Women of Envoy, I believe, is a powerful program created by the company. As a participant of the WE program, I see it as a very valuable resource, not just only in the personal side, but also on the professional side, because we can collaborate, share different experiences, participate in meaningful conversations around important topics such as leadership development, career growth, work balance, learn new things, celebrate us as women in leadership positions. For someone who is interested in applying for the company, a piece of advice: be authentic and embrace the opportunities that this company is going to provide them. Envoy always has fostered a sense of community and growth, and I think this is the perfect company to make those things happen.